Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the honourable member for the question. Maybe in a supplementary, motivation for asking this question will come out, but let me just give some background. Mr. Speaker, rent freeze was introduced by the military regime on 2nd March 2007. This freeze originally applied to both commercial and residential properties. However, commercial rental control was lifted on 6th April in 2009, while control on residential rent have continued for over 18 years now, Mr. Speaker. And let me just also preface this. Rent freeze is something that you put forward in an environment where there is an unprecedented event, because any kind of rent freeze can have a perverse incentive if it is allowed to persevere or stay on for too long. And I'll explain that, Mr. Speaker. And this is exactly what has happened. Because this has been there for almost 18 years, it has created all kinds of incentives, particularly perverse incentives. So it may have been well-intentioned at that time because the inflation rate was very high. In 2009, we had a devaluation. There was lack of confidence. Supply of housing was very bad. So all these things were happening around that time. And so in some sense, the longevity of the freeze has led to counterproductive outcomes and in fact created many loopholes. Firstly, the rent freeze has not been effective and actively enforced given the lack of proper legal framework and guidelines and resources to administer this. In practice, this restrictive policy has led to many informal, off-the-record rental agreements, and people will use all sorts of means to ensure that they can get around this. So basically, there was no monitoring, no legal backing to ensure that whatever the intention was, that it was achieved. So this has led to a lot of conflicts between the landlords and the tenants. In fact, there were about 8,000 complaints lodged with FCCC since 2010. Secondly, given that residential rent has been fixed for at least 18 years, without any review, rental properties have physically deteriorated. So those, Mr. Speaker, who have rented out their property, because they can't increase the rent, they've left it like that. So for tenants, it has resulted in very bad conditions, and basically homeowners lack the financial incentive to improve and make sure that the properties are well looked after. It has also, Mr. Speaker, reduced the incentive for new investment. So I know that people who built, so that two things happen. One, it reduced the incentive to build new homes because they feel that the cost of building now and the finishing of the flats compared to what the rent they will get is not going to be very good. And even if the starting rent is high, they will not be able to increase it. So what has happened, Mr. Speaker, is those who have put in new supply have actually started with a very high base. So if you build some new flats in Nakasi, where the rental would be $500 or $600 per month, the owner will actually go for $800-900 because he or she feels that they may not be able to increase the rent in the foreseeable future because the rent freeze has been there for too long. So that has also happened, Mr. Speaker. And many of those who are investing, in fact, there is a big increase in accommodation being given out on Airbnb rather than long-term rental contracts. And there are numerous other loopholes and incentives that have been created as a result of this prolonged 18-year freeze. There have been numerous calls to review and change the policy. And I know it happened during the previous government's time. And I think Honorable Kumar was minister responsible for FCCC and rent freeze when this proposal was actually made to review the rent freeze. This is what I'm told by FCCC. I think Honorable Kumar was, I'll come to that. I'll come to that. So Mr. Speaker said the coalition government is reviewing rent control together with the finalization of the landlord and tenancy bill, which is in its final stages of drafting. So the legislation will clearly define the rights and responsibilities of both landlords and tenants, which they failed to do. Introduce an electronic landlord registration system, provide transparent rent calculation methods, establish a rent tribunal for timely and affordable dispute resolution, and facilitate tax compliance and proper data collection through landlord registration. So, Mr. Speaker, say once, and this is taking a while. So, in response to a question, I mean, I know you will say this is what I promised. We are actually working on it, Mr. Speaker. Say. And because it's been there for 18 years, if we don't do it properly, if we just lift it tomorrow, then there will also be abuse, Mr. Speaker. Say. There will be other sets of incentives that will be created. So what we want to do is to make sure that this legislation, the landlord and tenancy bill, is properly drafted, carefully calibrated, implementation so that there is enforcement, there is a clear check and balance, so that it's not abused again as it has been abused for the last 18 months. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.